Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and the iPhone 14 Plus and the iPhone 14 Pro Max are the larger phones offered by Apple this year in 2022. And so I wanted to help you decide which one would be best for you. And so we'll start with the price. The iPhone 14 Plus is less expensive than the 14 Pro Max and starts at $899, has a $999 option and $1,199 option. That will get you 128, 256, or 512 gigabytes of storage. You cannot upgrade the storage on either of these. If you want the 14 Plus unlocked, you'll have to pay an additional $30. That means you can use it on any carrier and not just one. The iPhone 14 Pro Max starts at $1,099, has a $1,199 option, $1,399, or $1,599. That'll get you 128, 256, 512, or even 1 terabyte of storage if you want that. So you do have that additional storage option, but of course, in just about every option, we're $200 more from the Plus to the Pro Max. Now there's different colors between both phones. The 14 Plus comes in blue that I have here. It also comes in a new purple color, and then we have Midnight, Starlight, and Product Red, just like we did last year with the 13. With the iPhone 14 Pro Max, this color, Space Black, is one of the new colors. We also have a new deep purple color, then gold and silver. So those are the latest colors for these devices. Now the build is quite different between both of them. With the 14 Plus, we have aluminum or aluminium around the outside edge, and then we have glass front and back. So we have ceramic shield on the front, just like everything else. Everything that Apple sells these days has that, and Apple calls it an aerospace-grade aluminum. We no longer have a SIM card tray on either device, so there's no SIM card tray, at least in the United States, but you do have dual eSIM options. Outside the US, you'll have a SIM card tray. On the 14 Plus, this is made of what Apple calls surgical grade stainless steel. So again, ceramic shield on the front and then glass on the back. Now the 14 Plus, being made of aluminum, is lighter at 7.16 ounces or 203 grams, where the 14 Pro Max is 8.47 ounces or 240 grams. So there's definitely a difference there. However, the 14 Pro Max is a little bit narrower. If we compare them side by side, it's slightly narrower. It's about the same height, very similar there, maybe a little bit less, but in general, the 14 Pro Max actually feels a little bit better because it's narrower and maybe a little bit more grippy if you're not using it with a case, but it will show fingerprints. The back of the 14 Plus will show a lot of fingerprints as well, just by the way it's constructed. So the matte finish is really nice on the back of the 14 Pro Max, which doesn't show that. Of course, one of the major differences between both of these, other than their overall design, is their displays. The 14 Plus uses the display from last year, but is only 60 Hertz, but does still have the notch. So we have the notch still and a 60 Hertz panel. We don't have ProMotion in this like the Pro Max phones do. It is a very nice display at 2,778 by 1,284 pixels with 458 pixels per inch. It goes up to 800 nits brightness in regular use and then can go up to 1,200 nits playing HDR video. Compared to the 14 Pro Max, Apple's really stepped it up this year with the latest Pro Max phone at 6.7 inches again. We have the dynamic island, no longer have a notch. This is interactive. We'll show you that in a moment. We also have 120 Hertz ProMotion, which makes it super smooth, and it has an always-on display. So it's always on if you want it to be on. Put it on your nightstand. You can still see it, and there's different modes for that and settings as well if you don't want to use that. But it has a 2,796 by 1,290 pixel resolution at 460 pixels per inch. But the big increase is its overall brightness. It has 1,000 nits max brightness in regular use, 1,600 nits in peak brightness when using HDR content or viewing that content, and 2,000 nits peak brightness outdoors. It's over double the brightness in regular use. Just when you're using it regularly around the house, watching videos, everything else, it's double the brightness. So it's really great outside. Both of them have great viewing angles, no complaints there, and in general, both look great. However, there's something about the 14 Pro Max that just looks a little bit sharper. maybe due to the higher pixel density and the nicer display, but its overall brightness is incredible compared to the previous phones that Apple has offered. Now, something I cover in just about every video of mine is PWM, or pulse width modulation, the way the display controls brightness. It's controlling brightness by flickering the display faster and slower. Last year with the 13 Pro Max, Apple pretty much introduced DC dimming. They haven't said that officially, but the display is almost unnoticeable as far as it flickering. You can't notice this with your eyes, but at 240 frames per second, you can see that it's flickering on the 14 Plus and not the 14 Pro Max. It's very hard to pick up on the newer displays. So that's something you may want to consider, although it really doesn't bother my eyes on either, as Apple has done a great job in making the rate high enough where it doesn't bother my eyes. But it does seem to bother about 1 in 10 people, so I wanted to mention it. As far as HDR video, like I said, it looks great. Let me show you that. Now I have one of my videos playing in HDR, and you can see how low the brightness is. This is my iPhone 14 unboxing, and the brightness is set incredibly low. Both displays look great, and they both do a great job as long as the exposure is under 1,000 nits or under 1,200 nits. If it goes over that, well, then the 14 Pro Max will actually look better because of that. So pretty much the same when it comes to that sort of content, but in general, it's going to be very similar until you get to super bright content. And you can see how low I had the brightness on both displays just so I could show you that because HDR is so vibrant. So it looks great on both. Also, the speakers are very similar on both phones. I wanted to have you hear that briefly, but I don't think you're going to notice a difference, even though they're in slightly different locations at the very top. So let's go ahead and play a video. So here's the 14 Plus. Let's go ahead and hit play. Here's the 14 Pro Max. Now, between both of them, I don't really think you're going to hear much of a difference as they sound very similar. They both go just about equally as loud and have a nice wide stereo sound. They have very similar cutouts at the bottom, and the speakers should be identical in every way as far as that goes. I really don't notice a difference. Now, of course, the dynamic island is all new. That just gives you a few different things when it comes to notifications, or maybe you're using the clock. You set a timer. Swipe home, it goes up to the top. It's just a new way to sort of interact with things. Press and hold, you'll get to see your timer. Tap on it, it will open up the clock app. If you open something like music, let's drop this all the way down. Open music, we'll hit play, swipe home. As it's playing, it goes up into the dynamic island, and then you can see both things going on. So it's just a new way to interact. As you get phone calls, they show up, and you'll see more and more things added to this. I don't know that it's a reason to run out and purchase one of these phones, but it is something that's really nice to have there. Nothing that's really absolute that you need, but it's really nice to have that. And of course, Apple will be making this the latest thing with all of its phones in the future, so probably with the iPhone 15. Now, when it comes to specs, they're very similar as far as everyday use. You're really not going to notice a difference as far as speed. However, the iPhone 14 Plus has an A15 Bionic CPU, where the iPhone 14 Pro Max has an A16 Bionic CPU. There are enhancements, and it's built on the 4nm processor, making it more efficient as far as most things you're going to do, and it can process different things such as using the neural engine to manipulate photos and more. That sort of thing will be faster, but with everyday use, I don't think you're going to notice a difference. If you just want to look at it from a pure benchmark standpoint, you will see a difference. The numbers are going to be faster with the Pro Max or higher. You'll see multi-core 5,439 compared to 4,746 on the 14 Plus. It's a newer generation processor. It's a little bit faster, but in everyday use, it's really hard to see the difference. So if you were doing something such as exporting a 4K video or opening a game, let me show you that just to give you an idea of what the difference is, if any. Now I have iMovie loaded and I have the exact same clip in both. So as I move forward here, you'll see that I have a title that I added. So I split the clip, added the title of zollotech, so it has to process that when exporting video. It's the same exact clip in both, and they're both 3 minutes and 46 seconds long. So I thought I'd show you what it's like to export 4K video, as this is a pretty intensive process, but we probably won't see much of a difference. So if we hit done, we'll go ahead and hit share. I've brought in another iPhone as a timer. Let's go ahead and see if we can save the video at the exact same time on all of them. So there we go. We're exporting. Let's see how long this takes. You'll see both of them exported within about a second or half a second of each other. So when you're doing regular tasks, I don't think most people will notice at all. So both of them are very fast. If we go into something such as, let's see if we can find a game here, open that up. So we'll go into games and let's just open Minecraft quickly. So on both of them, the 14 Plus on the left, 14 Pro Max on the right, we'll just open those up. Neither of them were actually running before. So we'll give it a moment, and it is taking longer on the 14 Plus. So we'll again give it a moment. For whatever reason, it's taking a little bit longer. And there we go. Same messages. Let's go ahead and hit play. We'll hit create new and then create new world. And then again, create. And this will give you an idea of what it takes to actually create this. Sometimes it's going to be faster on one versus the other, or identical depending on what you're doing. So you'll see the newer processors loading a little more quickly, and we're in, but it's very close. We're within a couple seconds of each other. Frame rates, of course, are going to be very similar on both. If we go out of this and then maybe into Jetpack Joyride 2, again, the same thing. Let's see how long it takes. It's going into one right after the other. So as we're in, it took a moment. We'll hit play and we're in on both of them. Really, we're within seconds of one another on both devices. So again, if we go back, maybe go back into Minecraft, see how it resumes. This is sort of real world use as we're just getting back to using the regular game. Both are so similar. I don't think most people will ever miss one or the other depending on what you're using. Now, of course, one major consideration is battery life. Apple said in their keynote that the iPhone 14 Plus gets the longest battery life of any iPhone 14 ever, or iPhone, but they didn't say Pro iPhone. Now, this has a 4,325 milliamp hour battery, where the iPhone 14 Pro Max has a 4,323 milliamp hour battery. Now, depending on what you're doing, Apple says you'll get different results. For example, playing video, you'll get up to 26 hours on the 14 Plus, where on the 14 Pro Max, you'll get 29 hours. However, if you're playing music, you'll get more time on the 14 Plus by an hour than you will on the 14 Pro Max. So it really depends exactly what you're doing, which makes the difference. In real world use, let me show you the battery life here. If we go into battery life, this has been used full time by my daughter. So of course it's going to go based on how she's using it as opposed to how I'm using my phone. So if we go into battery, she's actually getting very good battery life. You'll see the other day, 3 hours and 16 minutes of screen on time, 6 hours and 29 minutes of screen off time, and she used about 30% of the battery. For me, it's varied greatly depending on the day. You'll see here, 2 hours and 31 minutes of screen on time for me, and 3 hours and 26 minutes of screen off time, and used about 40% of the battery. So depending on how you're using it, mostly my home and lock screen with the always on display was taking some additional power, but depending on how you're using it, this is from a different user, Cameron, you'll see he used only about the same amount of battery, 25% or so, and got 3 hours and 58 minutes of screen on time. So depending on how you're using it is really going to make the difference on which phone works for you. However, I would say in real world use, you'll pretty much get the exact same battery life on either one. If you're not using the always on display and you're using the exact same features all the time, you'll probably find you'll get through the day without any problem whatsoever. With about half of your battery life left is what I find I normally get. So it really depends on your use, but they're very, very similar depending on what you're doing. Both of them charge the exact same rates at 35 minutes to charge 50%. So you can charge up pretty quickly with a 20-watt adapter or higher, according to Apple, so no issues there with charging. Of course, another major consideration are the cameras. Now, the forward-facing cameras are identical. They're 12 megapixel cameras. They both have autofocus this year as well, which makes them great for recording video. They're the same across all the different models, so no differences there and no considerations if you use the forward-facing camera all the time. The cameras on the rear of the iPhone 14 Plus compared to the 14 Pro Max are the major difference here. The 14 Plus has dual 12 megapixel cameras, with the main sensor being an f1.5 aperture, a wide sensor, and then you've also got an ultra wide f2.4. You don't have macro and you don't have a telephoto zoom lens. You also don't have night mode portraits, like I said, macro photography, or Apple Pro RAW. The iPhone 14 Pro Max is where we get a major upgrade compared to the Plus with the cameras. We have an all-new 48 megapixel main sensor with a wide lens f1.78 aperture. We also have a 12 megapixel ultra-wide f2.2 and a 12 megapixel telephoto f2.8. Now, because we have the 48 megapixel sensor, we can actually punch in or crop into the sensor and get a 2x zoom without losing any quality. So we've got that. We also have a second generation sensor shift optical image stabilization. And then we also have new flashes on both of them. They're True Tone flashes. New generation for that. They both have the photonic engine, Smart HDR4 for photos, but the Pro Max also has Apple Pro RAW and macro photography, so we do have some advantages there. They both can record 4K HDR up to 60 frames per second. So all of that's the same, with cinematic mode on both of them going up to 4K 30. And also we have a new action mode. So all of those things have been updated in both of the cameras, but the Pro Max has the major changes. Now let me show you some photos and videos, and let me see what you think about what the quality difference is between both of them. The front cameras on both should be the same, which means we should have the same camera, the same autofocus, whether that's the 14 Plus that you can hear the microphone out of now, or the 14 Pro Max that you can hear the microphone out of this time. So let me know if you hear any difference or if anything's different between either of them, but they should be exactly the same. Now that you've seen the photos and videos from both, I'd love to hear which one you think looks best in the comments below. Now, when it comes to wireless connectivity, they both have the same exact antennas and setup overall. Both support 5G and millimeter wave in your supported country, as you can see the antennas there. They also have Wi-Fi 6, and they don't have Wi-Fi 6E. They haven't added that this year, but both have been upgraded to Bluetooth 5.3. They both also support Apple's future plans with emergency SOS with satellite connectivity, so that's something that's coming in the future or maybe out by the time you're watching this video. So they'll support that. Maybe if you don't have a signal, you need some help, and you're in a supported area, you'll be able to use that. They both have crash detection as well. If you're in a serious crash, it should detect that and help contact emergency services. Additionally, they both have the same IP rating, IP68, 6 meters for 30 minutes. So everything else is identical as far as that. And so that's everything between both of the phones as far as using them. I think both are a great option, but if you have the additional $200 to spend, I would definitely pick up the Pro Max as it has the nicer features and much nicer display. That is a big difference between both of them. However, if you had a 13 Pro Max and were thinking of upgrading, I would definitely skip the 14 Plus because it's not really an upgrade, it's more of a downgrade in most areas. So I would go with the 14 Pro Max if you're coming from a 13 Pro Max or a 12 Pro Max. However, the 14 Plus is great if you're coming from any other phone that didn't have the 120 Hertz ProMotion display, or you don't want the dynamic island, or you don't care about that. So both are a good option, but the 14 Pro Max is definitely the big jump this year. But let me know if you picked up either one of them, which color option did you choose, and let me know what you think of both of them in the comments below. Of course, if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.